To get a flight out of town at a time certain with, getting everybody to come in from across the state, you need to fly privately.
I need to fly private. I can't fly with the peasants. The peasants smell and have chickens.
And now, in order to fight the supposed Republican Jim Crow assault, this means that Democrats have every ability to undermine the actual functioning workings of democracy. It's really impressive. Do you see the unbelievable gaslighting and flip here? So the idea here is that Republicans are subverting elections by saying that voters should have verifiable means of voting. That is subverting elections. That is the new Jim Crow. Meanwhile, Texas Democrats, in order to stymie Republicans from pursuing this new Jim Crow, get to simply abscond from the state of Texas, violate the law, and shut down basic majoritarian democracy in Texas. Okay, unlike on the national level, where we have a 50-50 split in the Senate, there is no 50-50 split in Texas. Republicans have an overwhelming majority in the state assembly in Texas. And so Democrats came up with a strategy. They didn't want to pass this voter ID law. They didn't want to pass a couple of bills that suggested that boys should play with boys and girls with girls in sports. And so they got on a plane and they flew to Washington, D.C. in order to deny Republicans a quorum. And these are the heroes of the day, according to the media. If you undermine democracy by simply walking out of the chamber and leaving the state so that you can't be brought back to the chamber to vote in majoritarian fashion, now you're a hero. You see, the filibuster is bad. A long-held standard in the United States Senate that's supposed to promote debate and conciliation. That's really bad and anti-democratic. But if an entire political party in Texas picks up, gets on a private jet, and flies to Washington, D.C., while patting themselves on the back, in order to deny the workings of democracy, that's not only not anti-democratic, it is pro-democratic, you see. Now, you may be saying to yourself, I don't see a consistent standard here. Correct, you don't. There is none. There's no consistent standard. When it comes to the Democratic Party and the media, the answer is whatever forwards the agenda is good, and whatever does not forward the agenda is Jim Crow. And Joe Biden is fully on board with this, because the way you hold political power, according to Joe Biden, is you gin up an enormous amount of faux outrage, and then you claim that your political opponents are the equivalent of George Wallace standing in a schoolhouse door. Okay, so Texas Democrats absconded over the course of the last couple of days. They just picked up and they got in a private jet and they left. And they partied it up. In fact, they were bragging about what a wonderful time they were having in Washington, D.C. These are true emissaries of the people, by the way. They got in a private jet and they brought along a case of Miller Lite, just in case any of them decided that their drinking habit couldn't last for the 4-hour flight from Texas, from Austin to Washington, D.C. Gene Wu, a Texas legislator, tweeted out a picture of what appears to be a Caesar salad with croutons. He said, "My fist meal as a fugitive." I assume he meant a first meal. I don't want to know what he does in the privacy of his own home. He said, "My fist meal as a fugitive. Delicious." Well, what a hero. And then he tweeted out again, "Landed safely in D.C., officially out of arrest jurisdiction of Governor Abbott. It was wonderfully to randomly run into people who recognized me and applauded what we are doing." Yes, I'm sure that was happening a lot. I'm sure that people were just randomly running into this anonymous state legislator, and they were like, "That guy's a hero." And then we have a hero shot. A bunch of Texas state legislators who are standing very solemnly, but happily, in front of the United States Capitol, because nothing says appealing to Texas voters quite like absconding to Washington, D.C., and asking the federal government to step in and quash the workings of the Texas state legislature. Really, really solid Texas legislative stuff. One of the Congress people tweeted out, "It takes a village." On the bus from Dulles to D.C. last night doing the Lawrence O'Donnell show. Oh, the heroism. Oh, she was doing the Lawrence O'Donnell show from her cell phone? My God, it's like Normandy. Julie Johnson of Texas held the camera light. C. Ordaz Perez plugged in my phone to her computer as it was dying. Ramos for Texas found the bus outlet. Hashtag women helping women. Yes, it's just like Malala Yousafzai trying to stump for Afghan women not being crammed into basements and clubbed and acided in the face for the crime of going to school. That's women helping women. Women helping women is making sure that the camera is steady while you do a hit on Lawrence O'Donnell from your plush chartered bus to Washington, D.C. Oh, the heroism. They're stopping Jim Crow, guys. So much stopping of the Jim Crow. Okay, so some of these Texas Democrats have been asked about their obvious hypocrisy and the ridiculousness of flying first-class private jet, no masks, to D.C. to appeal for the federal government's help. And one Texas Democrat says, we need to fly private. It's like John Kerry.
I need to fly private. I can't. I'm important. I can't fly with the peasants. The peasants smell and have chickens.
There is a Texas Democrat explaining why they must fly private.
When you break a quorum, you want to be successful. So I think everybody wants to see, 51, 52, 55 Democrats on the same plane. That's reassuring. Number two, to get a flight out of town at a time certain with, getting everybody to come in from across the state, you need to fly privately. And as you can see from the picture, we're talking about using the same kind of plane that the public uses every day. There's no fancy couches or anything like that. This was just a regular plane that moved us from one state to another.
Well, they needed to, because they needed the reassuring picture of all of the Texas Democratic legislators fleeing the state. The sort of self-congratulatory nature of this, that's just the beginning. Texas Democrats then, in one of the most cringeworthy political videos of the last couple of years, they gathered together to sing "We Shall Overcome," like the civil rights anthem, "We Shall Overcome." Because it turns out that stumping against voter ID and making sure that biological boys can play against girls, and then absconding from the state in order to ensure that, requires you to sing civil rights marching songs as though you are Martin Luther King in Selma. These people are a joke.
We will overcome. We will overcome. We will overcome someday. Deep in our heart, I do believe we will overcome someday.
It's like my kid's talent show right there. That is not good stuff. Ooh. Number one, somebody get somebody who can sing. Number two, I'm noticing usually when people do civil rights marches and they sing things like "We Shall Overcome," I'm noticing an awful lot of lack of anyone giving a crap. And see, the difference between Selma and that is, the dogs, the hoses, the armed police. Here, it's just a bunch of Texas Democrats standing there, and their arm has stretched 3 inches from their inability to pat themselves on the back properly without an actual physical arm stretching. Who's got 2 thumbs and wants you to like and subscribe?